how's the week been down here at East Freo? I know you had to obviously dart back to Melbourne, but how's it been?
Yeah, it's been terrific. We were welcome down at Bunbury first and foremost, and they've done some work down there. Like, real credit to that whole community down there, and obviously government support. But what they've done with the marina and the oval, and even lobbying to get planes flying into Busselton has just opened up that whole southwest region. So it's really exciting to be connected to it all, and our connection to WA as a footy club stretches back decades. We've got 7 or 8 players on our list now that are WA born and bred, but we've had Winnie Abraham down this week, and it stretches back to Ross Glendinning and the Cracker brothers, and so it's been a really special connection. And as a result of that, we've got a lot of Kangaroo supporters in this state. So when we're exploring having to get out of Tasmania and where can we possibly play games, obviously one option was to take them all back to Marvel, but another option was to explore another couple of sites, and they explored the north and the west in particular, and this option ended up becoming a no-brainer, which is great for us because it allows us to reconnect with all those historical stories of our past, which is pretty special for our club.
What does that do for the club and the players when you have guys like Winston Abraham and even the Marsh brothers come down, particularly mid-season when you might want a bit of mid-season spark after the bye?
Yeah, well, I think Pete Siddle was a Kangas supporter, and the Marsh brothers, and obviously Ricky Ponting, the punter, was a mad Kangaroo and still is. So I think it's special when you get sort of that cross-sport pollination. We sit there, the 2 Marsh boys were in here talking about their careers, and we were asking them questions, and we're in awe of them as cricketers, and they're in awe of these guys as players. So it's really special to have that connection. Both need to be right at the top of their craft to be able to pursue the game that they love at the highest level, and it's really special when you get that sort of connection across sports like that.
You had a few cricket nuffies lining up for photos with him. Do you reckon the Marsh boys or your boys were more excited about it?
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of both. And that was the funny part about it. That's what I said. We're just in awe of what they've been able to achieve, and particularly because they're brothers. Like 2 brothers to play. There's only 11 spots in a cricket side. For them to have played as many games as they did, and in addition to that, their old man Swampy played a hell of a lot of Test cricket for Australia. Like, all coming out of the same family. Pretty extraordinary, really. And then obviously connected to those guys are Rod and Graham Marsh, who golf and cricket. What a contribution the Marsh family's made to this state and to our country. So we're just in awe of what those guys have been able to achieve. But they sit in here and just say, we just love watching you Kangaroos guys go about it. So they're watching us as much as we're watching them.
Have you been happy with how your guys have handled the slightly different week?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit unusual in terms of your normal preparation, but the players have embraced it, and it's actually really good to get away. It's like you're on a pre-season training camp in essence, and to get away together. And it was hardly a convincing game. Last week's game could have gone either way, and it was a real scrappy affair. And we'd like to think that we'll be a little bit more consistent across the 4 quarters against the Dockers, and we're going to need to be. They're a high quality outfit, and if we drop our guard in patches of games like we did last week, then they'll probably really make us pay. So, we've really enjoyed the week to be together, and it culminates in a big game against Freo on Saturday.
How are you looking at covering the loss of Charlie Coleman, who's been important, particularly with how tall Freo are?
Well, they're playing three talls. In addition to that, they've got the flexibility to put Jackson down there when one of those guys is off the ground as well, if they interchange. So that's a challenge for us. But we've got to work out this afternoon whether we brought both the Dawson boys across. They played in the VFL last week against Werribee, and one of those guys are likely to come into the side. We'll work that out this afternoon in terms of which one it'll be. But both of them played a fair amount of defensive back, but we're probably more likely just to replace Chom with one of those guys.
How's George looking, Clarko? He looked a bit sore Was there any chance he might be rested or managed?
No, he's going okay. He's just not playing the footy to the level that he'd like just at the present time. But he's a warrior. Even there was a contest late in the game. We pushed him forward in the last part of the game. There was a contest right on the wing. It was like a car crash. And to the credit of all players, there was 4 in the contest, and no one gave up the contest at all. And 4 guys just bodies flying everywhere. But George was probably the catalyst for the collision, and he's just a real warrior. And he just wasn't finding the footy as much as we'd like in the middle of the ground last week. So we put Lukey Parker in there, and he helped us in the last 40 minutes of the game. And George did some good things for us forward. So we'll just keep mixing and matching. And but what we do know is his best is at a high level, and guys go through little patches in their games where they're not finding the footy as much as they'd like, and he's got the flexibility to play forward. So, but yeah, he'll play midfield again this week.
Riley Hardiman, we always talk about the local blokes. How's he tracking?
Yeah, really well. We've really liked him as a young kid coming through, and I remember watching him play at St Kilda's old ground at Moorabbin in an under-18 game when he was playing the championships, and thinking, geez, I hope this kid's available for us when we get to select. So fortunately for us, he was, and so he spent the bulk of last year. He played a little bit of senior footy last year, but he spent the bulk of last year just learning his way at the VFL level. But and that was the case with the early games of this year. But he's probably been in the side for maybe 6 or 7 games now, and has acquitted himself really well. And just so much of it for young guys like that is just getting the belief that they belong at the level. And I think with continuity of just playing game after game, he's getting used to the guys he's playing with, the standard of footy that's required, the professionalism, the speed of the game, and he's handling himself really well. And he's got a really, really nice mix of being able to. He's got a beautiful long penetrating kick, but he's got a really nice balance of offence and defence in his game, and that's what we're searching for when he plays down back.
Just going back on the WA experiment, do you think that could be a long-term thing for the club? I noticed that Eddie Maguire came out last night and said maybe you should be going to the Northern Territory and it could be the North Kangaroos and all that sort of stuff. And what's your view on that?
Yeah, well, each club has to work out how they balance their books and explore opportunities. And we were down in Tassie for a long period of time, and obviously with Tassie coming into the competition, but our executive sat down and knowing full well that Tassie were going to come in and explored a lot of options, including, as I said, just taking all their games back to Melbourne. But the most productive opportunity for us in terms of generating revenue is also expanding our supporter base and stretching into another part of the country was WA. Now, whether it stays that way long term, I'm uncertain. That's more for the club and in some cases the league. The league will assist in making some of those decisions. It's long been explored whether or not there could possibly be a third team out of WA. Now that's not going to be North Melbourne, but right at the present time, we're happy to play some games here and satisfy a market down in the southwest, in particular when we play at Bunbury, that just love their footy, their fertile footy ground. There's been so many great players that have come from that region that have gone on to play some really, really good waffle footy or indeed AFL. So, and we saw all that support last weekend when we played against the Eagles.
Based on what you saw down there, do you think a region like that could support a team?
Well, it's very much in its infancy. They've just played the one game that they've hosted thus far, but everything that I've seen in that region, I can remember going there. Ironically enough, when I was at North, we went on a footy trip to Margaret River and explored the caves and a little bit of got dumped with the Margaret River waves. But the growth of that area in the last 30 years, but particularly the last 10 or 15, has just been extraordinary. And as I said, opening up Busselton as a venue where you can fly in now just makes that so much more accessible for the whole of the country. So who knows how it grows, but they're doing everything right in terms of hosting AFL footy.
Tristan Sherry's had an awesome year, but how much of a challenge is the 1-2 punch of Jackson and Darcy?
Yeah, well, it's pretty unique really, because most clubs are going with the one ruck and just sort of pinch hit with the second ruck, but they've got two high quality ruckmen, as we saw a couple of weeks ago when Das wasn't playing and Jackson was near best on ground. When he just took the mantle himself, and then Das comes back last week and Luke just goes to a ruck roving role. So it's difficult to combat that. We're going to rely on X to do the bulk of the work, but Jack Darling will give a little bit of support, and if we play Will Dawson, then he's played a little bit in the ruck as well. So we'll work out what we do with that this afternoon. But he's got a big challenge, but he's been playing some really good footy for us, and hopefully he's up for the fight this week.
What about Shea Bolton? Is there merit in just sending someone to him and just trying to lock him down, given his last few games?
Yeah, well, he's particularly strong against Gold Coast a couple of weeks back. And, I think he kicked 3 goals in that game. And if you've got a player in your side that can kick 3 goals and also generate sort of 25 touches of the footy in the midfield like he can, they're pretty valuable players, and that's why they work so hard to try and get him from Richmond and bring him home. So the difficult part about it is because he can swing from midfield to forward, and you think he's a midfielder, but then he spits forward, and then you think he's a forward, then he goes up into the midfield. So that's the quality of him as a player, to be able to switch from one to the other really, really quickly, and sometimes it can just knock around your structures a little bit. So we need to work out what we do there. But yeah, I'd reckon at some point in the game, if he's really hurting us, then we're going to need to try and negate him somehow.
And what are you making of Sheasel more kind of around and forward of the ball, and has that freed up McKercher to be that kind of playmaker a little bit more?
Well, it did last week. We put Kirch behind the ball, but that was one of the reasons. We put Shees behind the ball in the first instance. Both those guys are guys that play the game really, really well when the game's in front of them. They can also play other positions, but part of our struggles earlier in the season when we weren't winning games of footy was we weren't rebounding from our back end very well. So why wouldn't you put 2 guys down there that can do it? So for a start, we tried Shees down there, and he did it particularly well. The hard part about it is then you're taking away from your midfield and you leave a little bit of a gap there. So rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit, but it'll be horses for courses. Shees will continue to play a number of positions for us, and when we need him at half back, he'll play there. At the minute, it was the same with Colby. We need rebound from our back end, and so he went back there last week, and he's the best 2 or 3 players on the ground, which is a real credit to him, and his flexibility to sort of do different roles. But that's what we want. We want Sheasel to be able to do that. We want Hardeman hopefully will not just be a half-back flanker. He might play a little bit of wing for us. O'Sullivan, these type of guys. We want to have the flexibility to play a number of positions.
That move of Sheasel on Reed late seemed to work well, actually, didn't it? You got benefit out of that. He
was playing a little bit more forward in the first half last week, and we put him more into the midfield in the second half, and he got into the game. I think he had 20 touches in the second half, and helped us get back into the game, particularly the last quarter. But it was pleasing. It was a pretty scrappy affair that we were able to get over the line in the end.
And Jordan Clark, is that one you put work into off half-back? He seems to be almost hitting all Australian form.
Yeah, he's been a good player, hasn't he? He's sort of a little bit underrated and unheralded, perhaps because he plays over here, and the Melbourne media don't see him every week like they would some of the players that based in Melbourne. But he was a really, really good player at Geelong too. But he's really taking his game, it seems, to another level here. So he's a guy that just defends really well, but uses the ball and helps set him up. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But we've already spoken to a number of Fremantle players. We just got we can't try and sit in the gate every talented player that they've got. Otherwise, you're just chasing your tail. So there's a part of us where we just need to go out and play the game. And if some of these guys get off the chain, that's when you need to try to stamp them and hopefully negate their influence.